Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We are going to get started shortly. I'm going to allow a few folks the chance to connect their audio and get into the meeting, and then we will get started out of respect for everyone's time. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I have a Jennifer Johnson who is in the waiting room trying to get in. Hopefully, Jennifer, you can make it in time to be able to hear us. Again, good evening. My name is Janae Smith. I am with eHoldings. Myself and Allison Hunt will be helping to facilitate this afternoon's meeting. And so I welcome you. I'm going to go through a little bit of housekeeping before I turn it over to our presenters to kind of talk you through not only the FNB Financial Tower, but also how non-union companies can look at a labor union agreement for this specific project. And so I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Each of the speakers will introduce themselves as they speak. And so I look forward to a good discussion. If we can go forward to the housekeeping slide. So a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to, I don't think it's moving. There we go. The session is being recorded and will be posted. For those who were not able to attend today, we will not post, the question and answer segment. So if you would like to turn off your camera or remain anonymous by keeping your camera off, please choose to do so, but we will not be posting the question and answer segment for a variety of reasons. The registration of this meeting will only be published to the union to let them know who did participate and if you choose to follow up or follow along with them as part of this process. Throughout the meeting, if you have questions that you can't hold on to or you want to make sure that you put them into the chat so that at the end of the formal presentation, we can make sure that we address them. The intention is to have a dialogue throughout, so I'm pretty sure the speakers would love to have a really good, robust conversation with any questions folks have about joining or becoming signatory to the union for this project and for others. There is going to be a specific dedicated question and answer segment at the end of the presentation, which I've noted, which we will not include in the recording. And last but not least, throughout this conversation, if you're having any technical difficulties, you can use the chat feature to chat with Allison Hunt. She's our administrator for this evening. If you are joining via phone, which I know we have at least one person who is joining via phone, and I'm not sure that you are also joining via computer, you can use the *6 button to mute or unmute yourself. And then during the question and answer segment, if you want to raise your hand to get in line and ask a question, simply unmute yourself and start speaking or press *9, and we can kind of put you in the question queue to make sure that your question gets addressed. With that being said, and with those housekeeping items out of the way, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Teresa Giacomino with PJ Dick. Teresa.
Thanks, Janae. Teresa Giacomino with PJ Dick. We're the construction manager, as most of you probably know. Here, this kind of just presents all of our people, the groups and organizations that have been involved, have been helping along the way. You continue moving on. We're going to quickly breeze through some of these things for the project. Allison, next slide. So our objectives today, again, I think each of you are well aware of the mixed-use development of the FNB Financial Tower. I'll just quickly go over that. I want to just reiterate the M&W business and workforce goals, then talk to you very briefly about PJ Dick, subcontracting and our union affiliations, and then really turn it over to the meat of what we're all here for, and that is the union introduction, talking about project agreements specific to the laborers union, and then get into our Q&A. Next. So the office building, 26 stories, core and shell, the 22 floors of the actual office space, parking garage, and then the lobby retail. There are RACP city requirements as well as the MWBE that we'll move on to next. The project is 30% M and 15 W for business participation. The goal is a 20% new hire in the minority labor force. First and foremost, priority given to the Greater Hill District, and then new hires for minority community outside the Greater Hill District. Overall, the workforce development goal is to have 25% minority workers and 10% women workers on the project. Next. So PJ is signatory to these 5 unions: carpenters, laborers, cement finishers, operators, and iron workers in regards to just the rebar only. So today's session is on laborers, and we have each of the other sessions scheduled for one tomorrow and then the rest later next week in case any of you cross between multiple trades. Next. This is quickly just kind of illustrating the flow of the work in the project. As you can see, a little bit of a bell up from July of 22 through March 23, and then it tails down as we get to the end. And then the next slide just gives you a magnitude of some estimated hours by trade. So under the laborers, we're looking at nearly 55,000 working hours. And that could be low. I don't know how we've calculated, composite cleanups and things that trade companies will need to have on their crews in addition to their typical labor workforce. Next. And now here I will turn it over to whether it's going to be Bill, Dave, or Jason speaking. So thank you all again, and welcome to the union.
Thanks, Teresa. My name is Dave Jacqualente. I'm with the Master Builders Association, representing the signatory contractors here in Western Pennsylvania, and appreciate the opportunity to meet with everyone this afternoon. Tom Melcher and I had the opportunity to speak for a few minutes on May 17th with the bidder info session, and really excited to have Bill Brooks and Jason Markovich from the Laborers Local 373 with us today. Talk a little bit more about the specifics related to their union and what it means to work with them as a partner. And so I'd like to turn it over to Jason at this time. Jason?
Okay, my name is Jason Markovich. I am the Assistant Business Manager of Laborers Local 373. I'm here with the Business Manager of Local 373, William Brooks. Sorry about that. He's not big on the Zoom meeting, so I'm filling in here. He's here, but we're excited to be here. We very honored that you invited us here for this discussion. And as far as our role in the industry and the way we operate with contractors that aren't currently signatory, we're here to answer any questions, anything you'd like to go over.
If you can go to the next slide then, Allison. This is just kind of an overview of the labor unions. So some of the things, Jason, we looked at, it's just kind of talking about the path to the project agreement, some ideas of where to begin, what are the risks. I don't know if you want to speak to these points here, and then the next slide, I think, gets into a little bit more info.
Yeah,
okay,
I can touch on
a little
bit of this, Jason, if that's all right. Yeah, there's a lot of different parties, a lot of different people, a lot of different acronyms involved, within our industry. And so just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to ask any questions that they might have, who represents who, how we work together. It's a great opportunity for those of you that have your businesses, have been operating, to get an audience here and a meeting with both the business manager and the assistant business manager for the laborers, something that we're happy to help provide here. As I mentioned at the beginning, I represent the contractors, signatory contractors here. We have general contractor members and specialty subcontractor members here, as well as over 120 industry supplier partners and organizations in Western Pennsylvania. So in terms of the path to a project agreement, where to begin, contacting Tom Melcher with the regional building trades. Information is there. My information is also included, again, representing the contractors, but we work with our labor partners and be happy to help you as contractors with any questions you might have. Truly, the agreements, though, exist between yourself as an employer or a contractor and the labor unions. So I'd be happy to turn it back over to Jason if you have anything to add kind of about what that introductory relationship looks like, or what process you prefer to engage with new contractors on.
Okay. Well, Dave, that's hard to follow. You covered most of it there, but I mean, the details of our contract would be specific to our agreement. And as far as the financial obligations with the laborers, there are no upfront financial obligations. It's an hourly contribution, benefits, pay, pension, healthcare, and pay. The pension and healthcare would be contributed to the designated area, which will be in the contract, which is our combined funds. And anyone who would be interested in becoming signatory, we would get those details hashed out on a one-on-one basis.
10-hour days for the job's done.
So, Jason, as it relates to the last question on this slide here, where do I, as a contractor, get my union labor from? Can you talk a little bit about what that process would look like once some of our contractors on the line here today, if they choose to become signatory? What is that process?
I don't want to interrupt you here, but I'm getting a lot of Billy's on the phone here. I can hardly hear you, so
Sure.
I get you 1 second. I apologize. Good. I'm sorry, Dave. Could you repeat that?
That's okay. That's probably a really good in-person live example of just what you guys do all day long, which is
Pretty much, yeah.
work with contractors and field requests for labor, right? So my question was exactly what was going on in the background. So what does it look like for someone that they become signatory and they need some employees on their end, union members on your end? How does that process work for a contractor? And maybe touch on a couple of those bullet points in terms of what the training looks like through the laborers, and maybe even touch on the pre-apprenticeship program through our Builders Guild, which I know you guys have a big role in and committed to as well.
Sure. So if you were to become a signatory contractor with the laborers, even if it was on a project agreement basis, what would happen is your employees would become union members, and any additional employees that you would need, we could provide you with. If you have other employees that you wish to hire in, you can do that as well. They make an application to the union. There is initiation fee that can be taken out of their check through the employer after an authorization is signed. As far as the training goes, once the employee becomes a full member of the union, they have access to our training center, which meets and exceeds any state or federal guidelines as far as the level of training that they provide. It's top notch. So they would be able to utilize that as a member free of charge for any training they may need that's specific to this industry. Manpower request. It's as simple as a call to the union hall. We will dispatch the labor to you as needed. When you don't need the labor, you're free to lay them off, send them back to the hall, and we'll work with you next time you need one. It's the biggest benefit here is the fluctuating needs on each project. We understand that at different phases, there's different needs for manpower, and with the hiring hall behind you, you can accommodate those needs very easily.
That's a great point. I think that the training that you spoke of and the support from an industry standpoint, from a pre-apprenticeship standpoint through the apprenticeship, and the ability to have the on-demand workforce that you need as your project schedule dictates, is a huge asset and a great advantage for our signatory contractors working with the laborers. I would mention here the last bullet point on this slide in particular is something that Jason, you mentioned earlier in terms of the additional fringe benefits, training, health and welfare, pension. Those are all fringe benefits that do get paid, as Jason mentioned, on an hourly basis. That's part of the collectively bargained agreement. And those fringe benefits are due to the Combined Funds Office during the reporting period. So you pay your, from an employee standpoint, your wages in a given payroll period, and then the benefits get remitted after the fact. So it is, in many cases, a big change for contractors that are making the move from a non-signatory status to a signatory status. But it's certainly something that that both sides are more than happy to work with you, educate, and make sure that you're aware of all the responsibilities and obligations when you make this commitment.
Great. Can I ask a few questions, not on behalf of myself, but on questions that we've heard from contractors who may not feel comfortable asking these questions?
May feel like they should know the answer, right? And they don't, so nobody wants to look like the person doesn't know the answer to the question. If one of my employees, or when one of my employees joins the union as part of this agreement, are they limited to only doing union work? So if I have two jobs happening and one is non-union, and this is probably a loaded gun question, but can you kind of walk them through, just for their identification, what that could or could not look like? I think that some clarity there would be good.
Jason, do you want to?
I'll take this one, Dave.
Yep.
Yeah, you know, I'll be honest with you. On a project basis this long, we would expect the union member to be on the project and not back and forth to a. If this was a very short-term project, it'd be a little bit different. But once the member becomes a union member, he is expected to work as a union member. Now, if this is going to stay with that. With the company, it's going to be a one-off. They don't wish to do any more union work. Naturally, they have the right to drop their union card and go back to whatever they were doing before. But as long as they are an active union member, they would be expected to work on union projects.
Yeah, and I can speak from the contractor side of this as well. I think the double-breasted nature that you describe of the ability to work union and open shop or non-union, there are significant issues with that. And most of it is tied to the actual agreement, but specifically within that agreement related to the benefit fund contribution and the obligation that an employer has to the large pool of resources that go to these defined benefit plans. So as Jason said, if you're looking at opportunities and you're trying to determine if building a relationship here and being a signatory contractor as your business model is the right model moving forward, if it's a short project, I think Jason noticed that they are understanding and a little bit more flexible the fact that this is a short-term project and you may go back and take this employee and your business into more open shop opportunities. But I think the long-term plan here, both from the contractor's business development and growth opportunity, as well as from the union obligation and the relationship there, it's not a back and forth as you phrased the question, Janae. And I think that's the purpose of this call, right? Is to ask those questions that people feel
Understood.
like
I think the question was around, maybe back and forth was poor choice of words, if they kind of had already secured work, like future work, on a kind of a merit shop basis, and now have this opportunity and don't want to go and turn down that future work that they have secured, would they be in conflict? And just making sure that they understood kind of by pursuing this, if they have future work, if there's an immediate conflict. And I think you guys were very clear about having the discussion with them about what that would look like if that were the case. So maybe not so much as kind of flip-flopping idea, but more so, if I have work lined up that's promised to me in 2022, but it's merit-based shop, then, you know, but I would like to pursue something on the FNB tower, you know, can I do that?
My suggestion would be to Dave.
No, go ahead, Jason.
Okay, my suggestion would be that to commit certain workers to that project. If you were going to have a significant amount of work on the FNB towers and you were interested in developing your company in this direction with the more unionized commercial work, then I would have a certain amount of employees that you would commit to the project for the entirety. Now, if it didn't work out and this is something you wouldn't want to pursue anymore, obviously those people are free to go and work wherever they want. But as a union member, a current union member, currently working on a project and going back and forth to different projects, that's not a good faith. That's not a good faith move to begin with. If we're talking about developing a relationship, and that's really what these project agreements are designed for the contractor to have an opportunity to work with us, see if it's for them. It's not really designed so you can work back and forth between a non-union shop and an open shop.
Understood. I think
Or
I'm
a
glad
union
you
shop.
had that conversation for folks to understand that. Just
I
in
think,
case.
Jay, if I can add one more thing to that too, and I
Sure.
think this is a way that maybe we didn't answer this question from before, but the opportunity to pursue quote unquote non-union work in the future is not limited to you, so long as you're utilizing your union labor employees. So as a signatory contractor, you can go and put those individuals to work on a project that might not be through a PJ Dick or a Mascaro or a Macero, but you'd still be remitting those union benefits. You'd still be working under that agreement. There's that relationship piece to it as well.
Good, thank you. That is a good piece of information for people to understand. We do have some questions in the chat, and so in the absence of any questions, I was just kind of provided ones that I knew people had, but I want to transition to those. Will the Lower Hill development accommodate the increased costs related to union labor? So I think that's a Teresa question more than Dave and Bill question, or I'm sorry, it says Bill on the screen and I know that's not your name, so I apologize.
No, it's Jason
I
Murphy.
know.
I should, you know what, when I
Jason,
signed
sorry.
in, I should have put my name, but I knew Billy was slated for this spot, so it was going to be confusing either way. Someone was going to say, where's Bill or who's this? But
There we go. Now it says Jason. We're good.
all right.
Go for it, Teresa.
Oh, there you go. I appreciate that. No, it will not come at a decreased cost. This is a project that's slated to go union. You're going to come in here at the what we call in the business is the package, the union package, which would be for the laborers roughly. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but roughly around $42 an hour. That's broken up between healthcare, pension, and wage contributions.
And Jason, do you know how that compares the job for those on the phone as well as for the union guys? It is a prevailing wage job across the board because of the RCAP funding.
Right.
So all the trades will be following prevailing wage. Now, sometimes prevailing wage is more right at union rates. So as far as trying to have an increased cost, as Jason said in the beginning, some unions do charge you an upfront cost for a bond. Is that correct, David? Am I phrasing that correctly? Some unions have different rules when you sign into an agreement, but Jason, you're saying the laborers union doesn't do that. You just base it off of the actual hours worked?
Correct. Yeah, there's no upfront bonding obligation with the labor. I
Yeah.
can't speak to the other trade. I don't know.
No, with some other trades that do have that, Teresa, it's a good point. Those are really, as an insurance rate, that's what bonding is to protect the fringe benefit obligations and to make sure that those can be met and kept too. I think for those that might be on multiple sessions here or interested in different trades, this will be a question that gets proposed at each one, and you'll be able to learn a little bit more about that.
Right, and I'll pull that out as we know more information in advance. So not sure if that was Nike that answered that question. This slide's great for information as well. So perhaps maybe in your business model, maybe the union rate, let's pretend it's between $42, $43 an hour, is higher than you're typically used to paying your workforce. It looks like through the URA and through BPG and Janae, you may have more information. There are resources, as you can see, for loan or fund programs, and they may be of assistance to help you offset that. That isn't something that PJ Dick or the unions have involvement, but I wanted to make sure I had it up on the screen that there are things out there being worked on to help that side of it.
Thanks, Teresa. That's a good point. And for those of you who maybe need access to those additional resources, if you can reach out to us, we will make sure that you get connected to help this make sense for you, and make it be an opportunity you can participate in. I think the next question will be a great one that you guys will be able to easily answer. It says, I am the only employee at this time. Will a labor agreement allow all my workers to come from the union hall? So this person is the only employee of their firm.
Yeah, and they're asking if they can get all their employees from the union hall?
Correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's as a signatory, that's one of the privileges you have to, we can supply you with all the labor or none if you have it already. So, I mean, like I said, we try to meet the needs of the employer any way they operate.
Great. So the next question is, what happens if a contractor becomes signatory but does not receive an award? Will the contractor still be liable for fees?
I can speak on ours. Again, we have no upfront money here. So if they were to apply, if they were to sign a project agreement and they didn't get the project, that's it. The only obligation they would have is work being performed on that project. If they're not performing work on that project, they're not obligated to anything.
Right, and that's the case. Your benefits, your payment obligations, et cetera, are only based on hours worked. And if you have no employees working, from that particular union, there's no obligation there.
Thank you. How long does the application take? The process?
With us is fast as it takes for you to sign the agreement. I mean, we can do one in multiple ways, but I mean, if someone wanted to come into the office and meet face to face, I know right now with the pandemic season up here, we're all vaccinated, but whatever route they would want to take, we can do it over email, scan them a signature page, a copy of the agreement. They can scan it back. We get all the signatures, get it back with all the signatures on it and have it finalized. So, I mean, it could take a day.
Okay.
As far as the project agreement.
Jason, would you be willing to want to share that PDF document and we could email it out to those that attended this meeting so they get an idea and read over it?
Sure.
And then reach out to you if they are interested in that. Again, I don't know legally if there are any modifications they could make, or if that's a specialized one-on-one between you and the company, or is it, that's the way it is?
I mean, it's our project agreement is simply our independent building agreement on a project basis. That's it. There's no modified project agreement there. It's our agreement for one single project, which means that the employee or the employer wouldn't be obligated for any work outside of that project, but they would be bound by the terms and conditions of the agreement for that particular project.
Understood. Thank you for being willing to share it, just so folks who've never seen one before can read it and understand what to come talk to you about.
Okay.
Is there any required paperwork for them other than signing the agreement?
No.
Okay. So those are the end of the questions that I have in the chat, and questions that were posed to us just kind of throughout this process when folks just wanted to ask and make sure they understood what was happening. So for those of you who are on the call and on the line, can you take the time now? You can feel free to unmute yourselves
and ask any additional questions you have.
Tell her we can meet with anybody personally.
Hello, this is Dyson with Robinson Service Group. And I was the one who asked the question about the only employee. So do you have firms that you work with that do, place a bid and then just get their workers from the different union halls without them having extra employees?
Yeah, yes, we do. We have employers who operate with employees out of the union only. Yeah, and if you're owner, naturally you don't have to. You're not obligated to join.
And their superintendent.
And if you have a superintendent who's not performing labor work, a true supervisor who's not performing the work, they wouldn't be obligated as well, as long as they're not laboring.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.